Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, everybody. I'm back. Good to be back. So want to go and get to some late breaking college hoops recruiting news. And listen, we've done a lot of recruiting here on the Aaron Torres Pod and Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. But listen, you know, it's that time of year. Kids are starting to come off the board, and it's weird. It feels like we had kind of a very busy summer. And then late summer, August, September, it got a little bit slow. Kids are taking campus visits to 3, 4, 5 schools. And really over the last probably 3-4 weeks, it feels like a lot of players have come off the board. Cam Boozer, the Boozer twins, obviously to Duke, couple to UConn, a couple here, a couple there, a couple to Kentucky. You go on and on down the list. But I bring it up because just moments ago, we got another 5-star off the board. That player, Braylon Mullins. From Indiana, 6'4", elite shooter, elite player, obviously, if you're a 5-star. Well, he, you know, over the summer took a bunch of it, whatever. Bottom line is about probably 8 weeks ago, cut his list to 5. Then it was down to 3, Indiana, UConn, and North Carolina. Well, just moments ago, Braylon Mullins, 5-star guard from Indiana, committed to the University of Connecticut, baby. That is right. You can see at the bottom of the screen. Dan Hurley gets another one. Make sure you're following our Torres on UConn account for all of the big news surrounding Braylon Mullins' commitment. With that said, let's dive into this one. You got to be fired up if you're a UConn fan, okay? And now I'll say this. I don't think it's a surprise to any UConn fan. I think most people know I'm from the state of Connecticut, went to UConn, so I'm on a million different UConn text threads with friends, family members, whatever, and they've been asking me about this kid for a while, you know, whatever. They've been asking about this kid for a while. They've been excited about the possibility of him being a Husky. And really the last probably 2 or 3 weeks since he announced his final decision date, which is obviously today, everything's been trending towards UConn. You know, a few weeks ago, the crystal ball started rolling in. We've seen all the UConn Twitter sleuth accounts. Braylon Mullins is now following this coach and this player and this UConn account and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So it felt like it was trending that direction. It becomes official today. And now UConn has just another stud in their recruiting class. I'm going to talk about how Braylon Mullins fits in with the other 2 commitments in 2025, 5-star guard Darius Adams, 4-star center Eric Reeby in a minute. But as far as Braylon Mullins' talent and ability and skill set, man, oh man, like you talk about a kid built in the lab to play for Dan Hurley and to play for Luke Murray. This is the kid. He has the skill set. I think he's going to be awesome. First off, 6'4", shooter, best shooter in high school basketball. Listen, I'm not an evaluator, but I've seen all these kids play, and the kid is lights freaking out, okay? I think, though, what I would also say is that because he's been labeled the best shooter, I don't think enough people appreciate and respect how well-rounded his offensive game is, right? It's like, you know, like, I'm going to use an extreme example, and it's not because it's UConn, but like, think about Ray Allen, right? Like everybody thinks about Ray Allen as this great shooter, but especially early in his career, there was so much more he could do. But because he was such a good shooter, all you thought about of him was a shooter. Well, Braylon Mullins, again, not comparing him to one of the greatest shooters ever, but do think there's a lot more to his game that he probably doesn't get credit for because the shooting is so good. Can put the ball on the floor, can finish at the rim. I believe he's an underrated athlete, a guy that doesn't get enough credit for his athleticism because everybody's focused on the shooting. As far as the shooting is concerned, he can off the dribble, catch and shoot. You know, he can rip and run and pull up, you know, on the fast break. Really just a complete player, a complete scorer. And you know how I know that Braylon Mullins is good? Don't take my opinion for it. First of all, if Dan Hurley offers you a scholarship, you know you're good. But then 2, as importantly, Dan Hurley, through all the interviews with Braylon Mullins' family, has made it clear, we think you're a one-and-done kid. We believe that if you come in and you do what we ask of you, you're going to win at a super high level, but you're also going to be developed into a pro, and it's going to happen in 1 year. You could be in the NBA draft as early as 2026 if you follow our lead. So Braylon Mullins is off the board, and really he just joins what is just a phenomenal class at UConn this coming fall. 3 players committed, all in the top 30 nationally. 5-star combo guard Darius Adams. I had the audacity to call him a point guard on one of my previous shows or clips or whatever, and UConn fans came after me. Torres, what are you talking about? He's not a point guard. He's a combo guard. Bottom line is he's really good with the ball in his hands. This is Darius Adams I'm talking about. But he can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. He can shoot. He can score. He can set up. He can distribute. He can whatever. And Eric Reeby is a 7-foot center that can do it all too. We talked about him when he committed. Can step out and shoot threes, can catch the ball in the high post, can make plays from the high post, athletic, rim protector. And so when I look at this class, listen, I don't do the rankings. Where is this class going to be? I don't know if they're going to, Duke's got a bunch of highly rated kids committed, including the Boozer twins. But you talk about 3 kids that are perfectly built for UConn, that Dan Hurley system. It's hard to find 3 better in the class of 2025 than these 3. And listen, in college basketball, it's silly to kind of expect to figure out what a roster will look like a year from now. But those 3 with some of the talent that we all expect to be back, whether it's Aiden Mahaney, the transfer who's going to have another year of eligibility, whether it's some of the young guys, whether it's a Jalen Stewart, solo ball, whatever. The point I'm trying to make is that these 3 are going to fit perfectly. And while it's way too early to look ahead to what a roster may look like in 2025, 2026, I suspect that they're going to be walking into a program that is going to have the talent to compete at the highest levels. Finally, let me say this really quickly about the Braylon Mullins commitment. And that's this, is that when I look at it, I think this is the first recruiting cycle where it is just really obvious to me that Dan Hurley and his staff on a recruiting level, they're operating at the highest level. Okay. And listen, Dan Hurley and his staff have done an unbelievable job. I think they are the best evaluators in high school basketball. And I believe they are the best developers in high school basketball, because you look at some of these kids that have committed in previous years. Alex Caravan's going to play in the NBA, fringe top 100 recruit. Donovan Clingan, fringe top 50 recruit coming out of high school. I know people are going to say that's not true. Google it, search 24/7 Sports. It's a fact. Jordan Hawkins, 50th rated player in his high school class, lottery pick. So they've done an unbelievable job of getting guys that weren't on that national radar. But this to me is the next step, is they get 3 guys that fit perfectly. But it also is a situation where, they're really now, they're more choosing than recruiting. And they've always been very selective in who they bring into the program. I think this class, though, more than any other so far, is proof that, listen, UConn's not for everybody. We might not be for you. You might not be for us. And we're going to be very selective in who we bring in. Not a knock on anybody else, but there have certainly been other kids that were expected to be part of this class. And for whatever reason, UConn just stepped aside, whether it was in, solely an NIL thing, whether it was a attitude thing, whether it was a timeline thing, whatever it was. And there were some guys that I know for a fact wanted to be recruited by UConn. They're like, we're good. And there are some that they kind of did the early homework on, the early intel on. And they just said, you know what? We love you. We respect you. We don't know if you're a perfect fit here. And so for them to not only put this class together, but the manner in which they did it, you look at some of these recruitments, like Eric Reeby, as an example. I know this is a Braylon Mullins commitment video, but Eric Reeby was a kid that it seemed like it was trending Creighton forever. UConn gets in late. They get him to campus. They visit him 3, 4, 5 times in the DC area at his high school, including right after a visit to the White House after, meeting the president of the United States. And they were able to make up ground late. And it shows the power of UConn. It shows the power of, as you might guess, winning back-to-back national championships. It just shows that this staff now is even operating at a different level than they have been. Doesn't guarantee anything for the future, other than that there's going to be no drop-off. But the point I'm trying to make is that they now, in this cycle, when they walk in that gym, they command and demand as much respect for anybody. And at the end of the day, it's like, there's not only no slowing down, but it's also just interesting to me in that, that UConn offer, it's always held weight, but it feels even a little bit different. When UConn is all in on you, you have to consider and you have to pay attention. Braylon Mullins, listen, I'll let him tell his own story. I don't know that UConn was at the top of the priority list in July, August, whatever. But he visits in August. He gets more comfortable with the program. He gets more comfortable with the coaching staff. He does his other visits, and he just realizes this is the spot for me. They might have been first, but this is the place that is going to develop me into the best version of myself. So congrats to Braylon Mullins. Congrats to UConn fans. UConn fans, you got 3 really special players in this class of 2025. We'll see. I would guess they're mostly done recruiting the high school level. But as we know, as we saw last year with Liam McNeely, stuff changes. Maybe a guy goes pro a little bit earlier than expected. But UConn, for a third time in about a 4 or 5 week period, got a really good one with Braylon Mullins. By the way, Husky fans, do me a favor. Subscribe to the Torres on UConn Twitter page. Torres on UConn, all your late-breaking UConn news. You can also get your Maura Hurley 24 tees at AaronTorresOnline.com/merchandise.